Do you remember when you were a young girl, joyful, playful, and carefree? Even into your young adulthood, you were very confident and showed up very present and powerful. Yet somehow, when your role changed, you gave up your power to the powers that be. Join me on an exploration of how the inward shows up in our collective consciousness. Are you taking the time to replenish yourself, body, mind, and soul? Are you enjoying the beauty of the full human experience? Are you free? Let's see. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, and welcome to the Free to Be Show. I am really excited about this topic I'm sharing tonight. I have two of my favorite people in the world from two opposite ends of the world, as you know, from New Orleans and New Zealand. Tonight, we're going to talk about sexual responsibility and how it starts with self-love. Now, in the month of January, we've been covering the topic of self-love from different angles. And this year, I've decided to present topics differently on the Free to Be show so we can really examine whether or not we're truly free. Are we allowing ourselves to free our minds? So in review, the first week of the month, we started out with creating self-love and what that looks like. And if you'll recall, I had my friend who's named for me, Cordelia Spence, and another lovely lady, Herlene Ankar. And then the next week I had Laura Staley, and we were talking about coming home to self-love. Now, last week I had Veronica Awasu, and she was on, and we were discussing disentangling with self-love. And now we're diving into what happens, with two souls and energies merging, which is our sexuality. And that's the physical side of our spirituality. So with no further ado, I'm going to add my guest to the show. So, good morning, Andrew.
Good morning, Cordelia. Really nice to see you.
Yeah, it's been a couple of years.
Just
a few.
It has been a couple of years. Yeah.
Indeed. And good afternoon,
Hi.
Tonya. So let me, there we have it.
Hi.
All right.
Yeah, hi, Andrew.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Hey, nice to meet you too, from down under.
Down under, and as you probably watched the news, we haven't been able to go very far.
It's been a lot of us. I've been staying in my area, the hemisphere. I haven't ventured out since, 2020?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's the other side of it, right? So New Orleans and Australia. Well, he's a Kiwi living in Australia. He's pretending to be an Aussie. So
there's a lot I could say to that, but Kiwis don't want to be known as Aussies.
Yes. I know that's a pretty charged statement. Well, let's just jump into it. I asked both of you here because first and foremost, you have a very unique story and background with your sexuality and your story of self-love. So let's go with ladies first. Tonya, when I introduced this topic to you, what came up for you? What have you experienced as far as choosing your self-love and putting yourself first when it comes to your sexuality or sexual responsibility?
It's a loaded question.
Of course.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna say this. I have a dog. I'm dog sitting, so the dog is here, and sometimes she can be a little bit disruptive. So if you see, a shepherd just kind of roaming around, it's the dog. So
that's perfect.
So, I grew up in a very legalistic Christian household. So I really had no clue or an awareness of sexuality or even self love because we were always I was taught to be a nice girl. Um, I really wasn't taught anything mature about sexuality other than don't do it or don't have sex. So I really don't have, at the time, did not have an awareness or perspective about sex and sexuality or self love because we were always taught to be selfless. Did not have an awareness or even a basis of it. Um, Although my mother did say, you should think for yourself, but because I believe I was taught based upon her awareness or lack of awareness of sexuality. So I operated from a subconscious perspective, which proved to be disastrous in a lot of ways, but at the same time was very it was a teaching moment for me in gaining some perspective, and also I had to learn through trial and error about self-love and about putting myself first and placing my needs first. So I know it sounds pretty boring and bland, but I don't have any other perspective other than the one that I've known most of my life. And as I began to bridge from Christianity or apply some of those principles into metaphysics, into energy work, some massage therapy, I always knew intuitively that I was a sexual being, but I just didn't know how to operate in that power. I gave a lot of it away, I would say, versus harnessing and owning that power. And here I am today in my 50s, becoming more confident and more aware in it. Hopefully
Yeah.
that answers your question.
Yeah, Tonya. So, I mean, what I'm hearing is that you have only recently, as a mature woman, come into your awareness of your sexuality, and that you've given yourself permission to even love yourself instead of the way you were conditioned your entire life.
Mhm.
And so I'm curious, Andrew, as a man, was it any easier for you?
Perhaps. I mean, I wrote down this question for myself, when I was listening to Tonya speak there, is what does self-love mean?
Mm.
And you go through periods of your life where that constantly changes. And in 2021, that changed very much for me into the quality of my thoughts that dictate how I approach and feel about myself, the quality of my thoughts and how I speak about myself. And I've probably been guilty of being really hard on myself through the years. And then last year, it literally is a survival tool. As a survival tool was starting to pick up on would I speak to my friends like this?
Hmm.
Would I think of my friends like this? And then why do I do this for myself? Being consciously aware and picking up on these things. In regards to I think I'm in a new phase of sexuality and experiencing in my life as well, whereas before it was, I think it's gone a lot deeper. It's gone past now for me, way past the physical. It is now having someone who can meet me in that energetic and spiritual level and be my greatest teacher. Like I'm at a point now where I'm really willing to learn and discover my blind spots. Whereas before I probably had more my blinkers on and didn't care because I was doing what I'm doing. This is who I am. And now it's like, well, this is who I am, but can I be better? And
Hmm.
can I be better in a relationship? And can I be a better partner? Yeah.
Yeah, that's so important, and what I'm hearing you say is like all these years, you've mostly been in your body, right? And now you're venturing into your soul space and hoping to connect with someone who can meet you in that place instead of just from the physical attractions. Is that correct?
Yeah, very much. Very much. I mean,
Yeah.
I love the physical attraction, but I need everything else stimulated as well. I need my heart expanded and my mind. When you have that really deep and trusting connection, you're able and willing. I think the willing is the big part.
Yeah.
You're willing to look at your blind spots, and instead of deferring the problems back onto the person and going, look, these are your fault, going, what am I doing in here? What am I doing in this space that's creating this? Do you know what I mean? Which maybe I haven't been so good at in the past.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, when, I was at an event this weekend, the Ultimate Experience. And what I was telling, some of the men that I met there, I was like, you know what? You are a soul carrying a body, right? As opposed to most men operating as bodies completely unaware of their souls. It's more likely to meet a woman who is a soul carrying a body, and you can chime in, Tonya, if you agree with this. Then you would find a man being that way. And what I mean by that is, Andrew, you were talking about the expansiveness of who you've become. Like, and I feel like when we're in our soul space, it's so much easier for our hearts to expand and our willingness to connect with people with our full capacity, as opposed to when we're looking at things very linearly and from a physical space. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. So far,
Yeah.
so good.
Oh, so far, so good. Yeah, I'm good at what I do. You know that, Andrew.
I do.
And, I've been thinking about this, and I know, like, the title, when I proposed it to you, both of you said this. You were like, I don't really know what that means, but okay, it sounds like an interesting topic. So
I'm glad it wasn't just me, Tonya. I'm glad.
no,
Yeah.
you were not alone.
Yeah, so the title of it, sexual responsibility, I can say at my level of consciousness today that there are moments in my life that have been sexually irresponsible. And which
Define that,
means I
by
had
the way. Yeah, go ahead.
um, no intention, just coming, and I'm not saying it's wrong. It's just that I was coming from the primal perspective versus coming from a heart-centered perspective and engaging in sexual activity. Um, but I realize now that you have to be responsible to yourself first. If it's something that you want to do, you do it, but not out of compulsion or obligation. It should be free. And it is not, it's not confined by our belief systems. And it allows us to open and operate freely without the judgment. And I think from myself, working with and deprogramming my mind and my body and my emotions from the judgment of what it means to be sexually responsible and self-love. So if I'm self-loving, then that means that I'm going to do or engage in um, activities that highlight or that align with who I am in my love walk. Um, and even if it's primal, that's something I wanted to do anyway. And having the expectation is what really cuts us off of what we expect out of the sexual relationship. And women in particular, me being a woman, has more of a heart attachment to each encounter, um, not being detached.
I challenge that because I feel like, if you're walking into the space with self-forgiveness, right? And like you said, being detached, like the self-love part, it's like, for the love of me, I'm enjoying the energy of this other being, and and consciously choosing something without being completely attached. um Andrew, what are you thinking?
I was I was just listening to Tonya's before, where you you finished your sentence, and took a while to finish, and it was like, no intention, just coming. And I was like, oh, we've gone there already. We've got we've gone there already, but you tidied that up. I'll make it worse.
Coming, explain coming. Is that cum or com?
Oh my God.
cum. I was like, oh, Tonya, okay, this is a surprise. We're going here.
We can go there.
It's anyway, sorry to bring it into the gutter so fast, but
That's not being in the gutter.
I like this. I like what you were saying, Tonya, there about the primal. The primal one. The primal was okay. Like it's in our DNA. It's we have these human needs, and sometimes it is primal, but we also, it's that balance of, can you meet or get into that perhaps that sexual merging, as we were talking about, or that merging with somebody else, where it goes into a realm beyond where you didn't even know was possible. Because when you go somewhere and you're, holy cow, I didn't know this space existed. Yeah. Which can be really scary for people, which is why I think often the heart can be closed off when you get into relationships, because that's a scary place. It awakens a deeper knowing, or the fear that you're going to get hurt.
And it's, it doesn't necessarily have to be that way, because I feel that when we approach relationship from a place of union, that's why the self-love part is so important. Each individual has to be whole, right? So we have two whole beings who are choosing to be union, right? And in that union, they make choices where they have the aligned values, as opposed to like what Tonya was mentioning earlier about expectation. Because when you come in union, the aligned values mean that you're in agreement. And that's where you're allowing the expansion, right? You're allowing each other to expand and grow within the relationship, within the union. Does that make sense? Okay, go ahead, speak.
My question is, then how do we know when a union is wrapped up or time to leave that union? And is it when you stop discovering new space, or when that primal need is expired as well, or you don't feel that anymore? What are the signs that it's not right? You know what I mean? Because then we go into our fear brains as well of, oh my God, I've got to start my life again.
Well, see, I don't think this is the importance of coming together as two whole beings, because the primal isn't in the surface level of any of it, right? Because we're coming together as soul beings. So the primal is not in the equation at all. And which means the fear wouldn't be in the equation either, because when you're coming together as soul beings, you're already in the love space, which is the more expansive, higher frequency, you see. I'm going to just acknowledge that we have Michael Parano here. Thank you. Amazing topic. That is a personal decision, each person, as long as they're accountable to themselves for each decision. There's the energetic entanglement, no matter the intent. How do you feel about that comment? Tonya, what do you think?
The entanglements. And that, I think, a lot of that is driven by deep-seated mental, emotional constructs that we carry about love, about relationships. And Andrew, you said something about how do you know when it's over? I think intuitively you can feel it. You can feel that there may be an expiration date, but if you don't have the conversations, have the dialogue about it, and I think that's where we hiccup in relationships, where we don't really feel safe enough to talk about it, have these conversations, and we act and operate more behind the scenes.
And with that, she's gone black.
Here I am. I'm sorry. Somebody's
That's
trying to
okay.
call me.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yep.
we hear you.
Uh-oh.
Continue.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I think I may have to come out and come back again. So
Okay.
I'm going to leave and come back because I can't hear.
Okay, that's
Okay.
fine. We're going to go to a commercial break. We'll take this opportunity for that, and we'll be right back. The Free to Be Show is sponsored by The Ultimate Coach. The Ultimate Coach is about the work of Steve Hardison, but he really says that it's a book about being. It's all about you. There's specific instructions on the back of the book so that you change your being. And look, it works. These are pictures of actual readers. And this is a library in a company, and they're using it to activate their employees. Follow us on Instagram at The Ultimate Coach Book. And now back to the show. So we were discussing the part of union and when we know that that union has expired. So I feel like on some level that we've moved away from the responsibility of that self-love towards ourself, you know?
Mhm.
It's in the first week of January when we were talking about self-love, it was about creating it. And in that one, we talked a lot about values and recognizing what your values are and aligning your life and selecting people in your life from that perspective. So from, that's the heart space that you would be working from. So when there's misalignment, you would stay aware and know when it's happening. Does that make sense? I'm going to bring Tonya back in.
Okay. There she
Hey.
goes.
Can you hear us now? Okay, good. All right. So is that a little bit clearer, Andrew, for you?
Yeah. So what you're wanting to come back to the point of is the sense of self-love.
Yes.
Right. So, and can I give an example of some of how I'm approaching this year? And can you tell me if this is on subject or if I'm walking off the path again? So,
okay.
Coming back to self-love, and I mean, I'm not the only person that found 2021 a little bit challenging.
It was character building.
It was character building. You know, I have this beautiful quote. Let me fall if I must. The one that I will become will catch me.
Mm.
How good is that? That was like the best thing that I heard all of 2021. Let me fall if I must. The one that I will become will catch me. And so there was that sense of faith. And while I was falling, it was a sense of that self-love, that this is all happening, but I'm going to be okay. And how can I smooth this transition? Because it is, for me, it's this transition, right? And one of the words, well, for this next 6 months, I've got it on top of my head now, 6 months is being delicate with myself. Like being really delicate. So in 17, 18, 19, it was very simple for me to push. I was in a masculine energy. I was taking on the world. It was, I actually can't screw this up if I tried. I'm just going to push, push, push. And I loved it. Then the energy has changed so much that if I pushed right now, I would probably fall over. I would mentally fall over, maybe not physically, but mentally it would be the end of the quality of my mind. So it is now, how can I do these things that I still want to do, but in a way that is really being conscious of self-love? So being, for me, delicate, like not beating myself up, giving myself smaller goals, allowing myself to not get back out into the world and having to, be at the top again. It's like, what are just some of the small baby steps, and enjoy them and enjoy them, and be really conscious of the quality of my thoughts and how I speak about myself. And when I came back from Christmas time with my brother and my family, which was really nice to see them, because in Australia we haven't been able to leave our states. So to meet and see my family and come back with a bit more grounding and understanding of, oh, that's right, that's who I am. Because your family reflects back to you who you are.
Oh,
you know what I mean? Because
yes.
it's like, you're just my brother Andrew. Like, I'm not going to treat you any different. Coming back and just going, what are the quality of the people around me? Because that's part of self-love. What are the kind of experiences that I want to have this year that are going to fill my cup up? Not about my career, but what are the experiences that I can invite people into to play and fill my cup back up and fill theirs back up as well? And when you're doing that, self-love is like pivotal, because it can ruin your best laid plans by talking you out of, who are you to do this? You can't do this. You've had 2 years out of the game. You have to. That word delicate just came to me so clear, and it's how I approach everything. And I'm not even overloading my work anymore. It's like, is that being delicate, or is that getting into push? Because we know what's going to happen if you push.
Yeah.
Am I back on topic?
You are 100% on topic. And that's where I wanted to go with the sexuality piece, because like you're talking about the delicacy of balancing your feminine and your divine feminine and your divine masculine energy, and using all of that. A lot of people don't realize that our sexual energy is what helps us to create, and to create from a more pure, holistic space that is truly who we are, who we be in the world. So yeah, that's perfect, Andrew. Thank you for that. You're a world-class presenter, helping us all expand in this moment.
I love expansion. Yes.
Yes. And I can't wait until you come to Austin in June. You'll be right next door to Tonya. So
I will be too.
Yeah.
I will be too. Do you know what? And the whole approach to Austin was, can I tell you why I'm coming to Austin, just very briefly?
Yeah, I'd love to know.
Actually, Texas in general. It was at the beginning of the pandemic, 2020, and I was watching a Netflix show on barbecues. And there was this barbecue show on, and it was based in Texas. And it was all these people from around America doing their best Texas barbecue. And I remember going then, like innately going, I need to go to Texas as soon as our borders open. So that's the only reason, that's why I'm coming to Austin, Texas, is to hold an event, a 2-day event, but to take everybody afterwards and have people to drink beer with and eat Texas barbecue. So really, all I'm really doing is, and this is going back to what I was saying before, is what is the experience that I want to invite people into that will fill everyone's cup back up.
Yeah.
So it's the event, great. It'll be amazing. But what's really important to me is that people hang around afterwards, and I get to share that vision, that dream, and make that reality, and then take that step back to go, you made that happen, and you did it with ease, with grace, instead of push. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just gotta sell people on the barbecue. That's it.
And that takes care of the primal piece, right? Because on a primal level we must eat, and that
Yeah,
and
and
and then
connect
on the
and
soul
connect.
level we have to connect and come into our purpose. So it's like it's perfect, the
Mm.
meeting of the two worlds.
Tonya, I can see you like salivating. You must like barbecue.
I'm okay, but I'm barbecue is okay, but I'm enjoying seafood and
Mm.
crawfish season. And
Ah,
to me, that's love. That's
yeah.
love.
What state are you in again?
Louisiana, which is adjacent to Texas. Louisiana
There's
is
two.
east of Texas.
That's right, and they are very seafood, isn't it?
Yes, the
Yeah.
greatest
Okay.
ever.
All right. That's my
Yeah.
next stop.
Yeah.
Yes, come on
So
down.
in July you have to go to New Orleans. There it is. We've just given you the new tour of America. So
Okay, this
um
was easy. We should
that
do this every week.
yeah, that was easy. So I'm going to be in New Orleans in July, by the way. So no pushing you, of course. We'll just make it easy. So, Tonya, you've been quiet for a bit, I guess, mostly because you had tech issues. But chime in and tell us what are your thoughts?
I have dog issues. I have
Oh.
an animal that's in the room with me, and now she's under the bed, and and I hear her moving around. So, where do we start? Was there a question raised when my tech issues started?
So I guess Andrew was really pulling us back to self-love, and he was talking about how he is being delicate with himself, and really balancing his divine feminine and divine masculine, and using his sexual energy now for creation and moving deeper and more expansively, I would say, into his purpose. And so I know that you're doing something different with your sexual energy right now as well. And this is the part that a lot of people don't recognize. It is a divine presence and energy that we have available to us, but we default to that primal because we think that's all there is, that we
Mm-hmm.
we are in the understanding that it's a muscle and neurological need, and it really isn't.
Mm-hmm. Well, for me, it's about connection, um, connection to myself. It's about freedom to make a choice sexually without the judgments that have been held in mind for so many years. Um, and it's a personal experience, it's a personal journey, and it's something that I'm freeing myself of. I was one that would attach sex to love, attach it to the quality of the relationship, attach it to even the longevity of the relationship. Um,
Mm.
I know, but now I'm being forced to release and relax the thought forms that I've held for so long and just go with the flow. And now, not that I'm haphazard with it. It's just that I look at it as more. I look at it more intentional. I approach it from a perspective of intention, and I'm real conscious about who I engage with and who I choose, not to. So it's still primal for me. However, it's minced, it's laced with more intention. And I lead with the intention. This is what I desire. This is what I want. And I desire to create this experience. And it just may happen this one time. And it may not happen again. My lower senses say I may want it again because that's how I enjoyed the way that felt. But I still am approaching it from a multidimensional perspective. It's just not primal, but it's also spiritual for me. Sex is spiritual. Um, as long as I'm getting what I want, that's all that matters.
Okay, I know that you have also started some studies in Tantra, and for me, that's what has expanded the sexual energy into something more that I can lean towards my creativity versus just, it's the energy that goes up instead of down. And most of this conversation, we've been talking about the energy going down, like the primal. So, what about you, Andrew? Have you gotten into that at all, or are you feeling that you're, and say as much as you're comfortable with sharing. Um, but now that you're in a different phase, go ahead.
Yeah, I got into last year a lot of tantra and chanting. It was just the moving, getting my energy moving through my body from my base up to the top of my head. I mean, I found the exercise of chanting really amazing, and it's not until you really do it and understand it. I mean, I hired a really good music teacher a voice coach to help me. And when you get that feeling, or when you're chanting and you can feel the energy starting to move in your body, you go, holy shit, I actually didn't know it was so stagnant in the first place.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you can get quite stuck up here, especially in a tumultuous period. You know what I mean? It was like last year, sex just wasn't the top of my list. I had survival on my mind.
Yeah, gotta live.
I don't feel that aroused in a time of survival. You know what I mean? It was a completely different ballpark that I hadn't focused on before. So I don't know, around about August, I think I just really started to go, do you know, I need to shift this. I need to get out of my head. I need to get out of my primal instincts of survival here, fight or flight, and discover new aspects of myself, get this energy moving again.
Yeah. And so I noticed that you changed your tagline of what you do. Is that what happened? It was in that period when you were shifting your energy?
Yeah, it was. I mean, I used to say I take presenters from good to world class, and then I started to really engage that heart brain again. My energy started to move, and I was like, after coming up 29 years and doing what I do, it's not world class anymore. There's a place beyond this, and it's more energetically aligned with me, because world class indicates to me you're technically very sound. You know what you're doing. You're well practiced. You're amazing at your job. You have to say that you're amazing at your job, but there is a deeper, more spiritual experience to be had on stage for you and the audience above that level of world class, where people mostly classify world class. There's a level above that, and starting to understand the energetics behind that, I was like, let's not aim at world class anymore. Let's redefine what world class looks like. Let's take people to a place where you're not going, what do my audience want? Instead, you're going, what is the experience I want to have with my audience? Like, how deep can this connection go? How much can we feel in a room together? You know what I mean? And that's what I'm super excited about. It's what is beyond world class. When enough people are doing this, there will be a spotlight on a more spiritual experience on stage, where people see you.
And I would go to the next level of not just seeing you, but just seeing they would be experiencing your being, right?
Very much.
You would acknowledge their being, and you and your audience would have that reciprocation and be a reflection of one another, and when we're not in our expansiveness, when we're not allowing the creative energy of our sexuality to go up, we're very canned and linear as presenters, right? Like the average speaker is like, here's the 3 steps to blah blah blah, right? And people are talked at, right? And I have to say, the way you've always taught, and now you're expanding to making a shift towards it being a full body experience and an expansiveness of the being.
Yeah. So how I love what you just said, by the way, Cordelia. And so most presenters are focused on storytelling, and storytelling is a tool to connect. But storytelling for me is also it's a very technical tool to connect with you emotionally, the limbic part of your brain. So storytelling for me is, this happened to me. You know what I mean? This happened to me.
Or for you.
Or for you. But the heart brain is, this is happening through me. This is happening through me. And this is energy moving. This is heart brain open, energy moving. If your energy moving is your audience, and you start to get that rotating and moving in the audience, it starts to swirl, and that's power. That's the spiritual experience.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
100%. What say you, Tonya?
I am so distracted by dogs.
Okay.
How many dogs do you have?
Oh, so there was the next door neighbor's dog was here, and now another dog is here. So it was a shepherd, an Austrian shepherd, and now we have a Maltese here. So the dogs have taken over.
That sounds like a lot of vacuuming.
A lot of vacuuming?
Yes.
Well, the shepherd, yes. Yes, I have hair everywhere, but the Maltese is hypoallergenic. We love her. And she's pretty calm and tamed. But, I really am connecting to what you're saying, Andrew, what you said, and also Cordelia, about raising up the vibration in terms of sex and sexuality. I think nothing's wrong with the primal. However, me engaging into more of a study into Tantra and how energy works, and being a massage therapist, how, we can basically command our energy and our presence, and we can lead with it. And I think as a body worker, being more responsible with how I approach sexuality and my sexuality and sexual prowess and self-love, being a more responsible being with it, first and foremost to myself. It's a constant journey of discovery. So it's something that I'm approaching not as being right or wrong. However, using the energy, right use of the energy is important to me. And the healing aspect is too, and the creative power in sex is the responsibility of it. And
yeah.
Yeah.
You're making me remember, like, one of the quotes that I put in the description of this is from Eartha Kitt. It's all about falling in love with yourself and sharing that love with someone who appreciates you, rather than looking for love to compensate for a self-love deficit. And that is the healing. And our sexuality is the core of the spirituality, and self-love is the highest form of that spirituality. And a lot of people miss all of that because they are so focused on that primal aspect and not connecting to, like, the full energy of and the spirituality of love itself.
Yeah, for me, it's all about, sex has always been about connection. I may have come to it or approached it from a deficit, wanting to gain love through the act of sex. Right now, I feel more empowered as a woman in my sexuality. So if I'm coming to you with it, I'm coming to you as the gift, and I'm bringing you a gift, and I'm receiving you as my gift. and having the experience of the person that I'm choosing to engage with. For me, it's just the process of not attaching myself to that and just being present in the experience and receiving that which I intend to receive from it. However, the person that I'm choosing to be with, if I'm connected to that person, of course I want to duplicate that or not duplicate it, how I have the experience again, but it would be something totally different. And being a massage therapist, my hands communicate connection and love, and it's sensual. Even if there is no sex involved, I am still in a process of giving. I'm receiving. There's penetration there, but it's on a physical level, but it's also a mental and emotional level as well. So I think me being, and I'm not surprised that I became a massage therapist by default, because it was something that was always in me that lied or lay dormant within me until it was awakened by my own trauma of creating a disease in my body. And by that, I had to move, it propelled me in the direction of self love. So it enhanced the sex and all that. It just wasn't about sex. It's about it all. You know, it's about the mind, the body, and the
total
spirit,
union. Yeah.
everything. Yeah.
Andrew, you were going to say something.
No, I was just really enjoying what Tonya was saying. Yeah, you articulated that really well. I was really I was kind of transfixed there for a little bit. I love it.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the embodiment of it. And for me, it's just been a journey. It's still a journey, and I'm still a student. And I'm happy to be a student. It's just that when I attach myself to my beliefs that have been ingrained in me and embedded in my DNA, that is where I F myself up when I become attached to that outcome, whatever the outcome is, because of the physical experience. It's not the case. And that I'm still working with myself on that. I am.
It's a really nice point you brought up of you can go into a relationships or with a partner of you're very fixed in your beliefs of how it's meant to be. Do you know what I mean? And that's never worked for me when I've met a partner and we've kind of hit it off. It's never worked for me when they're really rigid in their beliefs of how it's meant to be, because I don't kind of think that way. And it's not that freedom for me doesn't mean, by the way, it's like I need multiple partners or, you know, I can't be loyal with someone, because that's the opposite of who I am. It just means freedom to choose the kind of relationship or the kind of journey you want to go on that suits you. You know what I mean? How do I want this to look? And, you know, I think I've met, you know, some amazing people in my life. Probably, you know, there's a couple of me you go, shit, I let that get away. But the fixed beliefs of how it's meant to be was probably the destroyer of it in the end. And moving forward, now I'm really clear that this has to be very malleable. You're both learning what are their beliefs and how can I help with those and manage those expectations and give you what you want or what you need. But how can I bring you into my world where, you know, some of these beliefs aren't so rigid, or perhaps the traditional way of doing things doesn't excite me.
Yeah.
Andrew,
go ahead.
Sorry. I love when you said the relationship has to be malleable. Yeah. Because of, personally speaking, my own rigid belief systems, I thought that it had to be a certain way. My relationship. Sex had nothing to do with it. It wasn't even me, you know. I had to be malleable. It wasn't even, well, I'm sorry, it wasn't the other person, it was me. So whatever, if the relationship ended, even though the physical component of the relationship was great, it was the other person. It was just time for that to end at the moment. Now, I found recently in relationships, in a relationship that I was in, that it can be transformed, whereas it may not be exclusive. However, if I still wanted to carry on a certain aspect of the relationship on my terms, I can. And sometimes the separation or the departure in the relationship, although you've had so much invested in the relationship, you may be able to come back at another moment, another season in the present moment to create something else that maybe it may look different from the way it did before. And that's what I'm finding.
So, I mean, you're both talking about how relationships can be malleable and how you value freedom. So freedom like is a high value. And yet it looks like you question whether or not you're free within that. Am I wrong?
You're right.
Okay.
We question it because of the history of the belief of the concept.
Yeah, Tonya, Cordelia, what do you think about this? Where I've felt lack of freedom, perhaps, quite likely, in the past, has been also having to monitor or use what do I want to speak about? What are my beliefs? What are my fantasies? And being able to share anything with freedom, knowing that you're not going to be judged by your partner. Now, I have experienced that of more recent. And I thought that was one of the most freeing and mature things I'd experienced in a relationship, was that ability to be able to discuss anything, and it wasn't wrong, or it doesn't have to be right, but it wasn't wrong also. It was that freedom to express. I think about this, or I fantasize about this, and the other person exploring that with you, and like to entertain the idea. And I felt that really refreshing, instead of, no, you can't, that's never going to happen in here. In this container, that's never going to happen. Whereas you're shut down. So that was a really amazing learning.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say is, like, when you communicate your requirements or your desire to experiment, you want to be in a creative situation where you create each other without attachment, without judgment. And that's really the responsibility part, is being responsible only for communicating and for creating consistently. And that's where it is. So that's what gives you the freedom.
And that's my creativity amped up a few notches with that. This is that was a big aha moment, because I felt my creativity changing. It's like, oh wow, I can access, I have my freedom of my thoughts again.
Yeah, because you're not caged, you're not caged in any way. You're fully expressed. So that went by too quick. I feel like we've been talking for 10 minutes. So if you were to sum up our conversation into one word, what would you say, Tonya?
Evolution.
I like that one.
Yeah. We're all on an evolutionary journey of self-love, more awareness of self, and also sexuality, and that it's all one. It's all the same. It's energy. So energy.
Okay.
I like that better. It's
so
energy.
You changed it. Okay, energy.
I'm a Libra. We change quick. Gemini, Taurus, So I got two airs and Aphrodite, and it's just like I can shift and change really quickly. But yeah, it's energy. It's how you willing to move it and keep it moving, right? Keep it
Yeah.
moving. And even though things change, structures change, we are malleable. You know, we're not mutable. We can move and we can flex and you know, energy. Just keep the energy moving and flowing within yourself at the highest levels, and whatever it is that you desire in the area of love, self-love, and sexuality, you can create that with a certain level of energy and perspective as you work on the lower stuff, right? The
Right.
shadows. Yeah, energy.
All right, Andrew.
My word is actually delicious. I know it's
Oh,
weird.
really?
Yeah,
That's not weird. That's accurate. Tell me more.
Love
because I sat here listening to this conversation and I felt excited by it. I have to be careful how I use this word, but aroused, and I mean it in a like I feel like I can
it. Use
feel.
it.
I was feeling excited by this conversation and how beautiful it is. It feels delicious in my body.
I love that. I'm so happy that you felt safe enough in this space to say delicious and not, because I can sense that there's a part of you that held back because of judgment. But I'm so happy that you gave yourself permission to say that, because I felt it in my body. And I'm happy as a man, as a male being, that you would have the guts and the courage to say it and not hold yourself back. So that's freedom, and that's sexy to me.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're
I
welcome.
appreciate that feedback.
So I'm going to veer off a little bit differently. So I'm just curious, where were you feeling it in your body?
Well, that's a really good question. It was my whole body, but from like my base chakra,
Root chakra.
root chakra up until here. Like I
Your
could
solar
feel
plexus.
it.
Okay.
And
I
because
assumed it
because
was
of
your
this-
heart, though.
Yeah, it is. Maybe I should use the word juicy, but delicious, because it felt delicious in my body. And I'm doing this organically, so I am indicating that my heart was open. But when your heart's open, everything starts moving. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Everything radiates from there. And Tonya, where were you feeling it in your body?
I felt it in the root. I'm sorry, I'm just gonna say it. I felt it in the root, but I know my heart is in it, because I did feel the heart and the womb and the heart connection. Right? It's just not primal, but it was delicious. It felt juicy because from what I heard from Andrew, I felt his heart. He spoke from the heart, which is genuine. Yeah.
Cordelia, so we both felt it in the root chakra. There you go. That's where it started, and then it opened up the heart.
That's great.
I think that's
me. I personally felt it all in my heart the whole time, because I just felt the expansiveness of the conversation. I was very pleased with the openness that you both brought to the conversation, and the vulnerability. It's not like an easy topic. And if you want to dive into this more, in the month of February, we'll be talking about the power play of love in relationship. So I think Tonya's coming back next month. Andrew, you haven't signed up for any for next month, but not nudging at all. But if you do want to come back, there's that open invitation. So thank you so much for our viewers and listeners, and Andrew and Tonya, for having this discussion today. And yeah, sharing
Thank
is
you for having
loving.
me.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a joy. It was a joy. So sharing is
You
loving. Share
You
with
say
every
that to all your guests.
I say it to all my guests. I only say it to my favorite guest. That would be you, Andrew, and you, Tonya. Yes. So
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. And, next time we can really dive deeper with some examples, serious,
Yes.
get more vulnerable.
Yes. Yeah. Pull back another layer. We'll keep doing it.
I love it.
All right. Good night.
All right. Bye.
Thank you for joining the conversation. Now, take the time to reflect, introspect, and implement at least one action. Be in your body, be in your soul, be in your spirit. Be free. Until next week.